Imagine being inside a mind that never shuts off. It's not just busy, it's layered, sensitive, constantly analyzing everything, including itself. That's often the reality for someone who is both INFJ and neurodivergent. Now, INFJs are already one of the rarest personality types, known for their deep thinking, emotional insight, and strong values. But when you add neurodivergence, whether that's ADHD, autism, or other forms of non-typical brain wiring, the result can be intense. Sometimes it can even be frightening. The word frightening here isn't about danger. It's about how overwhelming and misunderstood this combination can be, both for the INFJ themselves and for the people around them. This isn't about labeling anyone as broken or damaged. It's about recognizing what happens when emotional depth, future-focused vision, and intuitive intelligence collide with a mind that's wired to process the world differently. You might think being a neurodivergent INFJ means being wise, gifted, or powerful, and that's true. But it can also mean being mentally exhausted, socially isolated, and emotionally flooded. The depth that INFJs are known for becomes heavier. Their ability to sense emotions becomes harder to control. Their dreams become harder to reach. It's not always easy being different, but being different in multiple ways at once. That's a challenge very few understand. This video will explore 6 powerful reasons why the neurodivergence of an INFJ can be frightening. These are not just personality quirks. These are struggles and patterns that impact day-to-day life, relationships, work, and personal identity. If you're watching this as an INFJ, or someone who relates to these traits, you may finally feel seen. If you know or love someone who fits this description, you might begin to understand what they're really going through beneath the surface. So let's explore the emotional layers, the mental traps, and the hidden fears that come with being a neurodivergent INFJ. This is not just about personality, it's about how people survive when the world doesn't match how their brain works. Let's get into the first reason. Reason number 1, intense inner overload. An INFJ's mind is already complex. They're naturally wired to think deeply, reflect often, and absorb layers of meaning in everything around them. Now imagine that mind also processes the world through a neurodivergent lens. That means there's no off switch. Thoughts, sensations, emotions, they're all turned up higher than most people experience. What should be a simple moment can feel like an emotional or mental wave crashing in. This inner overload can come from anywhere. A conversation, a social event, a piece of music, even just a random memory can send an INFJ into a long internal spiral. That spiral isn't always negative. Sometimes it leads to big insights or creative ideas. But it often leads to anxiety, confusion, or complete shutdown. Neurodivergent INFJs tend to take in too much information at once. They don't just see what's happening. They feel it deeply, analyze every detail, and imagine how it could affect the future. Their minds are constantly scanning, linking thoughts and looking for hidden meanings. This level of mental activity creates a kind of pressure cooker inside their heads. They might look calm on the outside, but internally, they're carrying so much noise that they can't focus on the present. Physical sensations also become part of this overload. For some neurodivergent INFJs, a noisy environment can feel like torture. Bright lights, scratchy clothing, or multiple people talking at once can become unbearable. Their bodies react as strongly as their minds do. They may experience tight chests, racing thoughts, or even physical pain from emotional tension. What makes this frightening is that they can't just turn it off. While many people can relax after work or find relief in distractions, INFJs with neurodivergent traits often carry the chaos home with them. Even during quiet moments, their brains keep working, reanalyzing old conversations, worrying about unfinished tasks, or imagining every possible outcome of something that hasn't even happened yet. This kind of inner life creates exhaustion. Not just the kind where you need sleep, but the kind where your mind feels worn out from thinking too much, feeling too much, and sensing too much. The pressure builds until something has to give. That might look like snapping at a loved one, shutting down completely, or withdrawing for days at a time just to breathe. People around them often have no idea. INFJs are masters at appearing calm and collected. They usually don't show their stress until it's too late. That makes the overload even more dangerous because no one sees it coming, not even the INFJ themselves. This reason is frightening because the overload never really stops. It just gets buried, managed, or ignored. But it always comes back. And living in a mind that's always full, always running, always reaching for something, that's not just exhausting. It can be terrifying. Reason number 2, executive dysfunction and paralysis. INFJs often have clear visions for their lives. They know what they care about, what they want to build, and what kind of impact they hope to make. But when you add neurodivergence to the mix, something strange and frustrating happens. They struggle to take action. This is called executive dysfunction, a breakdown in the mental processes that help with planning, organizing, starting, or completing tasks. To outsiders, it can seem like laziness. To the INFJ, it feels like being trapped in a glass box. They can see what needs to be done. They may even feel passionate about doing it, but their brain just won't let them start. The longer the task is avoided, the more guilt builds up. That guilt turns into shame, which makes it even harder to begin. It's a painful cycle, and it often repeats every single day. Neurodivergent INFJs can become frozen by all the steps involved in a goal. They overthink the process before even starting. They worry about whether they'll do it perfectly, whether they have the energy, or how others will react to the outcome. This level of overthinking creates a sense of mental paralysis. The body wants to move, but the brain blocks every step. This paralysis isn't limited to big goals. It affects everyday things like answering texts, cleaning up, or making simple decisions. An INFJ, who deeply cares about their relationships, may still leave messages unread for weeks, not because they don't care, but because their brain just doesn't know how to act in that moment. Then comes the guilt, the fear of being misunderstood, and more avoidance. What makes this frightening is the gap between intention and action. Neurodivergent INFJs often have strong moral and emotional intentions. They want to help others, live purposefully, and stay true to their values. But when they can't take action, it feels like a betrayal of who they are. That sense of self-disappointment can turn into depression or hopelessness. This mismatch also makes it hard to hold jobs, maintain friendships, or follow through on creative projects. These INFJs might seem full of potential, but struggle to follow through. They might be labeled flaky, disorganized, or inconsistent, when really they're fighting invisible battles with their own brain every day. It becomes a silent kind of suffering. They don't talk about it because they fear judgment. But inside, they feel broken, as if their dreams are stuck on the other side of a locked door. And that's a terrifying place to live from. Reason number 3, emotional flood and empathic burnout. INFJs are known for their emotional depth and empathy. They can sense what others are feeling, sometimes even before those people know it themselves. This gift allows them to connect deeply, offer comfort, and support others through pain. But when that empathy is combined with neurodivergence, it can become overwhelming. Instead of understanding emotions, they become consumed by them. This emotional flooding can come out of nowhere. A sad story, a tense room, or someone else's anger can completely take over an INFJ's emotional state. They don't just feel for others, they feel with them. It becomes hard to tell where their emotions end and someone else's begin. Their emotional boundaries get blurred, and their nervous system goes into overdrive. Neurodivergent traits like emotional dysregulation or heightened sensitivity make it hard for these INFJs to come back down from that flood. They may cry easily, react intensely, or shut down completely just to protect themselves. Even joyful emotions can become too much. Excitement turns into anxiety. Love turns into fear of loss. Every feeling is big, and every big feeling comes with risk. This constant emotional sensitivity takes a toll over time. Many neurodivergent INFJs experience what's called empathic burnout. They care so deeply so often that they eventually stop feeling anything at all. They go numb. It's the brain's way of protecting them from drowning in emotion. But it also leaves them disconnected, confused, and often depressed. Relationships become complicated. On one hand, they crave deep, meaningful bonds. On the other, they fear being emotionally overwhelmed by someone else's pain. They may avoid conflict, struggle to set boundaries, or feel responsible for everyone else's well-being. And when they do try to care for themselves, guilt quickly follows. This reason is frightening because it leaves them emotionally unprotected in a world that can be harsh. They don't have the filters that other people seem to have. They feel too much, too fast, and too often. And when they finally shut down, they lose part of what makes them feel alive. They carry everyone's feelings on their back, but no one sees how heavy that load really is. Reason number 4. Identity fractures and masking. INFJs often spend a lot of time trying to understand who they really are. They think deeply about their values, beliefs, and the roles they play in the world. When you add neurodivergence into the picture, this search for identity becomes even harder. That's because many neurodivergent people grow up feeling wrong or different, and they learn early on to hide parts of themselves to fit in. This hiding is called masking. It means putting on a fake version of yourself just to get through the day. A neurodivergent INFJ might act outgoing when they're actually drained, laugh when they're uncomfortable, or stay quiet just to avoid being misunderstood. Over time, they begin to lose track of who they really are. They know how to behave in different situations, but they don't know which version is truly them. This kind of identity fracture is painful. On the outside, everything might look fine. They seem friendly, thoughtful, and put together. But inside, they feel like they're playing a role in a movie they didn't choose. They begin to doubt their feelings, their memories, and even their worth. They might ask themselves, do people like me, or do they like the mask I wear? This fear of being fake leads to isolation. It's hard to open up when you're not sure what parts of yourself are real. Some INFJs with neurodivergent traits start to avoid close relationships, not because they don't care, but because they're scared of being exposed. They don't want others to see the confusion, the anxiety, or the broken pieces they've been hiding. What makes this even more difficult is that INFJs naturally crave authenticity. They want to be real. They want deep, meaningful connections based on truth. But when they've spent years pretending, even they struggle to find the truth inside themselves. The more they mask, the more distant they feel from their own soul. This creates a life where they feel like a stranger to themselves. They might succeed at work, have friends, or appear confident, but deep down they're lost. And that's not just confusing. It's terrifying. Reason number 5, future anxiety and catastrophic imagination. INFJs often think far ahead. They imagine how things will turn out, what could go wrong, and how to prepare for every possible situation. This forward thinking can be useful, but when it mixes with neurodivergent wiring, it turns into constant anxiety. Their minds can't stop running through worst-case scenarios, even when nothing is wrong. This kind of thinking isn't just worry, it's full-body tension. A simple decision, like planning a trip or sending an email, can trigger a spiral of thoughts. What if something goes wrong? What if I offend someone? What if I forget something important? These thoughts grow louder and more detailed until they feel completely real. Their imagination, which can be a gift, becomes a source of fear. They don't just think about the future, they feel it. Their bodies react as if the danger is happening now. They get anxious, restless, or even sick from stress. And the worst part is, they often know the fear isn't logical. But that doesn't make it go away. This future anxiety can make everyday life harder. They may cancel plans, avoid new experiences, or stay stuck in situations they hate because the unknown feels too risky. They might turn down good opportunities just because they can't stop imagining how they might fail. Over time, this kind of thinking erodes confidence. It convinces them they can't handle change, that they'll mess up, or that something bad is always waiting around the corner. They begin to live in fear of the future, even if the present is safe. This pattern becomes exhausting. They want to feel calm, to trust life, to believe in their own strength, but their brain won't let them. And that's what makes it frightening. They can see how they're trapping themselves, but they don't know how to stop. They are stuck in a loop of overthinking and fear. And the longer it goes on, the harder it is to break free. Reason number 6, misunderstanding and isolation being an INFJ often means feeling different. They think differently, feel more deeply, and see things others miss. But when they're also neurodivergent, that sense of being out of place becomes even stronger. They often feel like they're speaking a different language than the rest of the world. Their reactions might be too strong, their thoughts too complex, or their silence misunderstood. People might say they're too sensitive, too intense, or too quiet. Over time, they learn to keep things to themselves. They stop sharing their ideas, their dreams, and even their pain, not because they don't want to, but because they don't want to be judged. This creates a deep feeling of loneliness. They can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. They feel like no one really gets them, and worse, they fear that no one ever will. That kind of isolation isn't just sad. It's heavy. It eats away at their sense of belonging. Many INFJs with neurodivergent traits grow up without the right support. Teachers may not understand their learning style. Friends may not know how to connect with their depth. Even family members might dismiss their needs as dramatic or strange. These experiences leave scars. They begin to believe that maybe something is wrong with them. They become experts at pretending they're fine. They smile, nod, and go along with things, but inside, they're shrinking. They stop expecting to be understood, and they stop asking for help. But that only makes the isolation worse. What makes this especially painful is that INFJs want connection more than anything. They dream of deep conversations, shared meaning, and soul-level friendships. But when they keep getting misunderstood, they stop trying. They pull away. They protect themselves by becoming invisible. And that kind of loneliness, the kind where you feel unseen in a world full of people, is one of the most frightening experiences anyone can have.